Yeah, raccoons they're going to take over the world. For sure. I mean, I think they've already started, honestly. Yeah, they have thumbs and they're smarter than us. Okay, so raccoon proof. Yep. Okay, got it. Yeah, I think I can do that. Okay, I'll let you know when it's done. Hi friends, welcome back to Disabled Farm School. I'm Rachel. I'm a writer, creator, actor, and ecological designer, and this is Disabled Farm School, where we learn about gardening and DIY and farmsteading and kitchen skills together with different limitations and parameters. Some might come from disability, like in my case. Some might come from other stuff. So if you're new here, welcome. I hope you stick around. If you're returning, thanks for being here. This is so fun. So I just got off the phone with my friend who has a situation that required a little bit of design thinking, which is one of the things that I help people with. She lives at the bottom of, I would say, one of the longest, steepest flights of stairs I've ever seen someone have to go down outdoors to get to their apartment, which she doesn't complain about. She enjoys it, mostly. She loves coffee. If you love coffee, you know that making coffee often produces a lot of coffee grounds. And coffee grounds are very, very useful in the garden. They're very compostable. There are also plants that love acidic soil, like blueberries. You can just put the coffee grounds right on the soil around them, as long as you don't have an animal that will try to eat them. I would pan to Juniper, but she finally went to sleep, and so we're not getting her jingling, but she's a dog, and she did once eat coffee grounds, and I had to call poison control. And, yeah, it's not fun. What was I saying? Oh, yeah, coffee grounds are compostable. Where we live, me and my friend who I was speaking with, there is municipal compost. We can put yard clippings and food scraps into a bin that gets picked up every week. However, if you drink a lot of coffee, your little under-the-sink compost bin for your kitchen will fill up very quickly if you're also putting food scraps in there with every day's multiple rounds of coffee grounds, which means that she would have to be going up and down those stairs way more often than she already does. We all have limits. I was looking at her, she was like a really tall mason jar full of coffee grounds, and she was like, I really don't love this system. It's not my favorite. It's sitting here for long enough that it starts to smell before I can take it up, but if I do less, then I have to do all these trips. I thought, you know what would be perfect for this is a worm bin. We just chatted about building her a worm compost bin, and that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to take you along with me so that if you want to make a worm compost bin, you can do it as well. I'm a very rough and ready worm bin person. There are people who are meticulous about their layering and their building of the bin, but I'm going to show you a cheap and easy, rough and ready way to do it that also accounts for her particular needs. So she's got a lot of raccoons and skunks where she lives, and they will bust into anything outdoors. So we have to think about how to secure this so they're not getting in there and trying to eat the coffee grounds and leaving it open for her cat to then get into. So we've got our design parameters, both personal access needs and frankly nature's non-access needs for nature to not access the thing. And we're gonna get our supplies. These are all supplies that were either free or I got at the thrift store, or I got from my own worm bin. You can order red Wriggler worms online. You want to get them live. So sometimes they're sold for bait. Sometimes they're sold live for bait for fishing, but you can also just order them for gardening. And you only need a handful to start off a healthy worm bin. And then you're good to go. So if you've got any of these supplies already around, but you don't have worms, you can pause the video, search online for anywhere local that you can get red Wriggler compost worms, or anywhere online that you can order them in the mail. They come in the mail, they are still alive, and you pop them in your worm bin and get them going. All right, let's head outside and get our supplies together and build this worm bin. Please just ignore the chaos that is my patio right now. People who have gardened for a long time or even professionally do this too. All of us. It's a mess. There's failures everywhere. It's okay. Just keep going. I'm gonna let go. Let go of the chair. Fence. All right. Thanks, Juniper. That's enough. Thank you. Good girl. No. This is my worm bin. It's a deck box. Juniper! Hey! Hey! Judy! Good girl! Good girl! Thank you. Now she's gonna run into the camera. No, she didn't. Good job. Thank you. Good job. Stick me in the eye. It's okay. It's okay. Hello. What was I saying? This is my worm bin. It's a deck box. It's very big because I have a lot of space to grow plants, so I can produce a bunch of this, and most of my compost goes in here. I'll tell you what I don't put in here as we're building the worm bin, but I'm just gonna get a handful of worms out of it. Go on. Junie. Jesus. Come on now. These worms have made incredible dark, rich compost. This is a lot of what's called the humus molecule. So I'm going to use this to inoculate basically the new worm bin with worms, but also with all the other microbes that are helping with this process. This is making me think it's so good. I think it's time to harvest that side of my worm bin for some compost to put on my plants as well. I don't know if I'm gonna have time to do that today, but if I do, I'll show you how to do it, because once you have a worm bin, it's nice to know how to use it. Put these in a bucket that doesn't have holes in it, because otherwise they're gonna run away. Those aren't for you. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Hello. Yeah. Okay. Let's go over our... Junie, what are you doing? Okay. Yeah, let's go over our supplies list. We have some food scraps. Now, you'll notice, if you can see closely, and I'll try to give you a zoom in. What I've got here, I've got coffee grounds, of course, like we talked about. Paper towels that I know haven't touched anything like prone to pathogens, so they haven't touched meat or dairy. They've probably, wiped off a cutting board or dried my hands when I couldn't find any clean hand towels, because life is lifey sometimes. I've got some corn that went off, some little fruits that rotted before I even got to eat them, which is a bummer, and corn husks, peach pit. And then I've also got a couple of things that you may have heard not to put in worm bins that are actually fine to put in, as long as they are not the majority or only thing that you're putting in. Hi, chickens. Those are citrus, especially lemons or limes, once you've squeezed them, and avocado pits and peels. Sometimes the avocado pits and peels take way longer than everything else to break down. So if you're trying to harvest often from your worm bin, you might decide not to put them in. What I don't have here is eggs, meat, or dairy. Sometimes if I have like a bread crust or something, I'll pop it in here. Basically, I don't want rodents, I don't want raccoons, and I don't want to have to stay so on top of the timing and pathogen protocols of my worm bin as I would have to if I was using it for like meat, bones, that kind of thing. It is totally possible to do a worm bin with those things. I would recommend you look up a couple of different sources. Don't use AI. You want to get really like USDA or, agriculture-based sources to find out how to do that and what kinds of plants it is and isn't safe to then use that compost on. But since we're using mostly veggies and fruits, and then pits, wrappers, paper towels, we should be good to go. The other thing I do include, and you can decide about this or not, is egg shells. You can be fastidious about this and only use eggshells from cooked eggs. I am not fastidious about it, and that is not necessarily a recommendation, just what I do. I'm gonna crush these up really small because worms are really cool animals. They don't have teeth, but they're somehow chewing through all of this stuff. And part of the way they do that is they keep grit in a little pouch, similar actually to the way that chickens do. And so they need a way to get that grit. They might get it from soil that you add to your worm bin if you want to put a little bit of that in, or a little sand, or crushed up eggshells, that kind of thing. Next, we've got leftover packaging material, especially if it's unbleached. So I've got all kinds of this. I've got some leftover uncolored tissue paper, cardboard. This is very useful. You want to have at least enough cardboard to cover the inside of your worm bin in one layer. Brown paper packaging, like that they use in packages to keep stuff safe. What am I trying to say? Keep it from breaking. Padded newspaper. Most newspapers, if not all, I think are now made with soy-based inks and are totally safe to put in the compost. A little more cardboard and some insects that have to go live somewhere else now. Sorry guys. Next is our bin. I picked this up at the thrift store for $3. It needs to have a lid. We don't want the worms to get out, so we're not having any holes in the bottom, and we don't want the rain to get in, so we're not having any holes in the top. But we do need airflow. Luckily, this bin was at the thrift store because somebody melted a hole in the side. So we've got our little airflow bit. If it starts to smell really bad, I might drill another couple side holes. My preference would be to do that right under this lip so that if it does rain, not a ton of water is gonna get in to our worms because we don't want them to drown. Worms need moisture. They need it to always be moist, but they never wanna be underwater. So the first layer I'm gonna put in is my little strips, just to have a layer on the bottom of something that can soak up moisture because we are gonna add a little bit of water. And if it's hot and dry, we might, especially with a smaller worm bin like this, need to water it sometimes. So I'm gonna put some strips on the bottom to make sure that it's moist but not underwater. So as you can see, it's a fine science, very technical, very precise. That's a mix of specific and precise, which in itself is not precise. Anyway, now I'm gonna layer the food in. If you wanna do this for just coffee grounds, like my friend is going to do, great, you can totally do that. I'm starting these guys off with a little bit of mixture of different stuff because that's what they're used to, and then they'll transition over to coffee grounds, but I don't know that it really matters that much that I do that. This is just what I had in the kitchen to start them off with. If you wanna get fancy, you can put a mesh divider vertically in the middle of your bin that the worms can get through, but like big chunks of food are not gonna get through. The reason to do that, and that's what I have in my lower deck bin, worm bin, is because you can feed them on one side for a while, and the idea is that they'll all move over to that side. Then you can feed them on the other side for a while, and they'll all move over to that side, while the first side is done, right? It's been turned into compost. So then you can harvest from that side without having to sift as many worms out. You will still have to sift them out because, for better or for worse, worms are pretty comfortable re-eating the worm castings, that's poop, that they've already created for a number of times, really. Recycle what they've already created. Now I'm gonna add my worms, and as I showed you, they are here, but let me give you a little up close on a few of them because they're just really quite lovely. I think worms are very cool. If you want to watch this video but you don't want to see worms, just skip the next like 30 seconds. Here. Can you see them? My little friends? Yeah, there they are, little red wrigglers. So you can see they're not earthworms, they're smaller and redder. These are the best for compost. So this is why I don't just go and get earthworms out of the garden. Earthworms are great for creating pathways for water and air in the soil. But when you want like high nutrient rich compost for your garden, red wrigglers are the way to go. Just gonna add them in, sort of sprinkle them across. Now I wanna get them covered up real fast because the sun will dry them out. The next layer is gonna be a bunch more of this packing material, and what I wanna do is make it really easy to reach down the edge and pull it to the side so that when I add more stuff from the kitchen, it will be under this packing material. So for that reason, I'm not gonna tear up the first layer of it. I'm just gonna put these in like so. And this will eventually get composted as well, and you'll have to add more back in. So if you see it sinking or getting turned into the compost, luckily these days, a lot of this stuff is just in our lives and we're trying to figure out how to get it out of our places of living. So then on top of that, depending on how much work you feel like doing, you can just put these in as they are, or if you want a nice fluffy, more uniform worm bin that the worms can move through really easily, you can tear it into strips. I actually don't think it matters that much. They will eventually start to eat through the bottom layer of your brown layers. You can also use straw for this. Don't use grass that has gone to seed or is still green. This part needs to be brown, dry stuff. And it shouldn't have seeds in it because then they will sprout in your compost, which unless you are using your compost for your lawn, you probably don't want. You can put more of this in than you think you need because when it gets wet, it's gonna compress. Great. Oh, I forgot to add the eggshells. Let me show you what I mean about reaching down the side. Go down the side till you feel the stuff that's not paper, and then pull it back and add that in. I'm gonna crush them up in my hand first, as small as I can. This kind of hurts, so if you don't like that, put a glove on or use a mortar and pestle, because they need it to be, smaller than a worm mouth. Eggshells also add calcium to the soil that you're creating, which your garden needs, so even the big pieces that the worms can't eat will be good to have in there. So now we're gonna water this just till it's moist, not till there's water pooling. So now I'm gonna add water. I'm gonna add it a little bit at a time to each layer, sort of mix it in. You can also pre-water all of your cardboard and paper or whatever browns you're putting in with the hose. Just spray it a little bit. You can soak your cardboard in a tub and then shake it out, however you wanna do it. Just trying to get everything a little bit moist. Now this may be big enough that if it's kept in the shade, the worms will keep it moist on their own, but likely in a really hot summer, dry summer like we have here, it's gonna need a little bit of water added sometimes. On the other hand, coffee grounds in a jar might have a lot of liquid already in them, and that might be fine. Or my friend can top off the jar with water, which will help get the coffee grounds out, or spray it out and put that water in at the same time so that it helps clean the jar and gets the moisture in there and doesn't waste any water. On the top, to help keep that moisture in, we're gonna put a few layers of cardboard and we're gonna get them wet as we go. It will run off a little bit, which is why I didn't add a ton of water before. This is the argument for soaking it, but that takes a while, and I am disabled with a blood pooling disorder and I don't want to get up. Do what works for you. Do what works for you. So you're also sort of creating insulation to keep it cool inside the worm bin when you do this. And that's cool. Same thing with the cardboard as with the paper. You will eventually need to add more, but luckily most of us have too much cardboard in our lives. So if you're someone who needs to order stuff in the mail rather than go shop for it because of the limitations or parameters of your life, whether that's having kids or having 3 jobs or having disabilities or having a chronic illness or just it's what you need to do for whatever reason, this is a great way to use some of the byproducts of that supply stream. You can also recycle them. Recycling, especially industrial recycling, takes energy input, like usually electricity input of some kind, whereas this is just taking my energy input. And what else was I gonna do with my morning? Not be out in the sun on a beautiful day? That said, a lot of people can't be out in the sun on a beautiful day, and if you're one of those people, this channel is for you, so that you can experience it through your screen instead of not having access to it. Because I can access it, I'm going to, and I'm gonna share it with you, in case you can't. And that could be for all sorts of reasons. It could be because you're bedbound or housebound, but it could also be that you work indoors during daylight hours and by the time you get home it's dark. But you're watching this on your lunch break to get a little taste of outside, even though you're on the 12th floor of an office building that doesn't have any outdoor space for you to have your lunch in. Okay, cardboard's on the top, and that's our worm bin. Except for the smartest animal most mischievous animal, stolen so much of my food on camping trips, once stole my bathing suit and peed in it. For no reason, just to say that they could. And these are the raccoons. So this lid clicks on, but a raccoon could open that. Easy peasy. So I'm gonna offer my friend 2 bungee cords. If this works to deter raccoons, great. They might be able to undo it. If it works to deter raccoons, but it's also deterring the human who's trying to use it, then we'll check in and we'll iterate. We'll come up with a better design. That's part of any kind of design thinking, whether it's for your garden or some other part of your life or your work. Test it out. And then if it's not working, try a new thing. This is not the one and done, right? This won't work for all situations. It may not work for yours. Adapt based on your own needs and parameters, but also find cheap, fast, easy ways to test out what you've come up with so that if you need to change it, you still can. And that is a worm bin. Now I just have to get it down all those steps for her. Cool. Luckily there will almost definitely be coffee available at the bottom because that's sort of the whole premise. And a delightful friend. So all in all, this is pretty great for me on all counts. Plus I'm getting rid of a ton of cardboard that I needed out of my house. Now we're gonna take this and put it in the shade somewhere. You can even keep this in your house depending on how quickly they are eating. It may or may not smell, and you may or may not mind the smell, but some people do this under their sink. I find, even with my outdoor one next to my back door, the only time it really, there's lots going on today, the only time it really smells is when I add way more than they can eat quickly enough, and then it starts to compost the other way, which can involve a little bit of rotting. So if you're adding sort of at a slower pace, or you're only adding coffee grounds and they smell like coffee grounds, you may be fine with it, or you might have it in your garage. Just need to check on it. You know, I'd say for one this size, I would start by checking on it every day to see how much moisture it needs, and then you could check on it once a week once you figure that out for the season that you're in. Yeah, let's go put this in the shade. Summer is here, y'all. Before I leave you to take this worm bin to my friend and her coffee grounds, I thought I would just show you one method for harvesting the nutrient-rich worm castings once they're really broken down and dark and soft like I showed you at the beginning. I'm not gonna do it right now because I need to do it outside and my dog is drinking water. Hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. Hydrate. Oh yeah. Hi Juniper, you wanna come hang out? What was I saying? Oh, the reason I'm not doing this outside right now is because my neighbors are having a consult with their contractors and I don't want them to feel like I'm filming them. Hi. Oh, she's just looking for food. She didn't want company. Another thing I picked up at the thrift store on the same trip that I picked up that bin that we used for the worm bin was this mesh colander. The worms can't fit through this. The way I would do this is I would take one of those handfuls or maybe 2 that I took out of the bottom of the side that I have not been feeding, right? So it's had time for them to fully process everything that's over there. And then hopefully a lot of them have migrated over to the side that I have been feeding. And I would put them in here and I would put this on top of a bucket. And then I would just gently pour water through. If I was having trouble, I would spray it with the hose. The worms can handle getting wet for a few minutes. We just don't want them sitting in water. The reason I'm doing that is I want to keep my worms. I either want to put them back in the worm bin or feed them to the chickens. One of the reasons I have such a big worm bin is to be able to raise my own protein for my chickens, which I'm doing in tiny increments right now. It's nice to close that loop. Then what I would have in the bucket is basically a tea of worm compost and water that I could pour on my plants and it would soak in with the nutrients, especially if you have a lot of the humus, that really good soil nutrient molecule, which I relearn more about. I've forgotten more about it than I No. I used to know more about it. Humus, it's cool. If you put the worm castings solid right around the bottom of a plant, sometimes they're what's called hydrophobic, meaning instead of absorbing the water, they will then like shed the water like off of a duck and it will go to the sides. But if it's mixed with water and it can soak in, then it's spreading into the soil. It's not as solid a chunk of it. That can actually help move it into the soil rather than having it stay on top of the soil. So that's how I would do that. And then I would put the worms back in the worm bin under all the paper, right? We're not dropping them on top where they could dry out from heat or not have anything to eat. Thank you for joining me. I hope you stick around. If you're not subscribed, please feel free. I would love to see you around here anytime. And if you try this, leave me a comment. Let me know how it's going. Or if you've tried a worm bin before and it didn't work for you, let me know in the comments why it didn't work. And let's see if we can problem solve that together. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for joining me here at Disabled Farm School, where gardening is for everybody. And we're just trying to figure out how together.